Hello and welcome to Deprogrammed. I am Keri Smith. I'm your host. Today is Monday, and welcome back, everyone. Today's episode is called How to Talk to Your Woke Child or Your Woke Young Adult, Your Woke Teenager. And this is an episode that a lot of people have asked for. I regularly get emails and messages from people who ask for advice, and I end up sharing a lot of the same advice. Every situation is different. Of course, there's going to be differences whether the child is still living under the roof with you or if they're a young adult and they've already moved out. There are going to be differences. Some parents have been completely cut off by their kids, and others still have communication with them. So some parents are going through a bitter divorce, and that also plays a role. There's going to be differences, but the advice that I give that is pretty common, people have asked that I kind of put together in one place. And so this is the first attempt to do that. So if you're here, welcome. We're going to jump right into it. I just want to get right into this topic today, and then we can hang out and read chats and ask questions. If you have questions, put them in the chat. I'll get to all of them at the end. Let me just get through this. Number one. So here's the first bit of advice I would give. Prayer. I know that if you are not a believer and you don't believe in prayer, and if you're very prejudiced against the idea, that's okay. Or if you just don't believe in it, that's fine. You can jump straight to number two. I'm just going to say number one is prayer. Prayer works. My aunt prayed for me for 20 years when I was in the woke cult. I hope that in your case, if you're going through this, it won't take that long. But I say that just so that you know, it was anybody, if you asked anyone, including my aunt, I was a lost cause. I was a completely lost cause. And she and I would have bitter back and forths at certain periods of my life. And it wasn't just that I was lost to the woke cult. I wasn't on God's path. I was very bigoted towards the idea of belief and towards the idea of a God. And I was very arrogant about, I know everything. And, I had addiction issues. I thought my aunt was a bigot. If any of this sounds familiar, I told her she was a bigot. Maybe this has happened to you. I told her she was part of the white heterosexist patriarchy and the capitalist system. And some of the stuff, I'm smiling because some of this stuff is probably sounding familiar to you, because it's pretty similar. When you have someone who's lost to that woke cult, they all tend to say similar things because it is a cult, because they're getting similar language. And so the first thing I would say to do is pray. Now, my aunt was hardcore about it. I didn't even know this. I knew she was praying for me, but I didn't believe in prayer, and I didn't know that she had a prayer closet. And I didn't find this out until years later as an adult, after I'd left the woke cult, and I was staying with her when I went home to visit. And her guest room closet, I opened up to put some clothes in there, and just it was amazing. I started crying because she had different Post-it notes on the wall, like index cards, basically with different people's names on them. One was my name, and then underneath it, she had Post-it notes of prayers that she would just add, like sticky notes that she would add, and she had a whole column of prayers for me. And the idea that she would go into this little closet and sit there and take the time to think about all these different people that she knew, even when we were having fights and were combative, that she was doing this for me, was amazing to me. Really emotional experience to see that. And so prayer works. I've been a Christian now for not a very long time, I guess. For about as long as I've been out of the woke world, and, several years now. And the longer that I try and walk God's path, the more things start to make sense to me. And the more things God shows me, things about prayer. When people say these, when you're a non-believer, because I was a non-believer most of my life, when you hear people say things about your faith deepening, and you're like, you just think that's some cliche thing that doesn't mean anything. But it actually does mean something. It actually does mean something. And so I would pray. If you're a person who already prays, this is going to come naturally to you. If you're a person who doesn't pray, but you want to try it, well, what can it hurt, right? And even if you're a non-believer, you can offer your prayers up to the universe, if you want. That's what I used to do when I first started entertaining the idea that there could be a God. I know a lot of people do that at first. So you could say, like, to the universe, to the great creator, who, if you are out there, if there's anyone out there, help me, do something. I need help. The Bible says that God is close to the brokenhearted and that he will hear your pleas when you cry out to him. And so why not try it? And some things that you can pray for, aside from that first, maybe it's your first time ever trying prayer, then it's going to probably be a plaintive, like, help me, I need help. But aside from that, if you pray regularly, some things that I think are good to pray for would be to pray that God directs your speech, especially when and if you are interacting with your child, that God bridles your tongue and that God surrounds you in his light and love and truth. And he guides your words and your steps. And then just let go and trust that he's going to do that. Right? Pray that if you have a problem with your child trying to trap you with anger, saying hateful things to you and trying to get a rise out of you, then I would pray for patience, obviously. Give me patience. Give me a sense of peace and serenity, even in these moments. Fill me with the Holy Spirit when I'm interacting with my child. You can pray for that. Pray that God uses you as a lantern for his light, that you're a vessel for his light. And then for your child, I would pray for that God surrounds your child in light, love, truth. These are things I pray for a lot. Surrounding someone in truth, just the idea of, like, surround them in truth. Now, that's not always going to be a positive experience for the person. If God starts doing that, sometimes when a person is surrounded in truth, that could cause them to hit a rock bottom. That could cause them to double down and get angry. But it's good for them. It's good regardless to be surrounded in the light and the love of God and the truth of God. So these are some things you can pray for yourself, for your loved one. And if you don't pray and you don't like that this is number one on my list, don't worry, we're getting right into number 2. Okay, so number 2, don't be a doormat. Sometimes people think if my child is being abusive to me or malicious or hateful to me, the way to win them back is to just roll over and do whatever they say, to basically let them be the slave master and I will be the slave, to let them be the tyrant and I will say and do whatever they want. This is not a good path. Do not be a doormat, because if you're a doormat, then what do they have to come back to anyway? Let's say they leave the woke cult that they're in. Let's say they eventually leave that ideology. Well, it would have been through no help from you, actually, because you just became a servant to whatever your child wanted. You didn't stand for anything. If they ever eventually get out of it, they probably won't think of you as someone who helped them, because if you just validate whatever excesses or unhealthy things that they're engaging in, then they're not viewing you as this strong rock, this strong foundation. And so don't be a doormat. I know that's a temptation. Some people have this in them more than others. Not everyone's the same. Some people are pleasers more than others. Maybe you grew up in an abusive childhood. Maybe you got used to being the person who pleases and soothes everything and tries to calm everything down. And maybe you have some of those tendencies. And so you probably know if that's you. But you have to resist that urge just to bend over and do whatever. It doesn't mean going along with, if you have a strong sense of what's right and wrong, and I would assume that you do, which is why if you're here and your child has left you for the woke cult, then that's what you have. You have a sense of what's right and what's wrong. What's true, what's not, and you and your child are at odds about this right now. So if you have that sense, you can't abandon your principles to try and please someone who's living in lies, who's living in a bad, unhealthy, evil ideology, however you want to phrase it. You can't abandon your principles. You have to stand for something. And that's going to be better for them in the long run. This is the same thing with, I tend to think of, sometimes I think about being in the woke cult as an addiction. There are some things that it has in common with an addiction. And for a lot of people who are in it, you'll notice they use it like an addiction. They tend to obsess over these things and focus on these things. They make the subject of every conversation is about something political. Like every conversation is about Trump and all the narrative that the cult feeds them about Trump. Oh, he's a fascist. He's this, he's that. Everything's about Trump. Everything's about politics, or everything is about the tenets of the woke ideology, which includes stuff about, your white privilege, and you're saying this because you're a male, and you're trying to control me because you're a man and I'm a woman, and you're trying to do that. Everything they say and obsess over is about this cult of ideology they're in. But that's another form of addiction. It's kind of like an addiction. It keeps them from focusing on the things that they actually have some sphere of influence and control over, like the things in their life. Now, sometimes the things in their life that are going wrong are really hard things to tackle. A lot of the parents I talk to, their adult kids don't have a job. Some of them are still living off their parents or asking for money and asking for, pay my car bills, pay my insurance, stuff like that, while also calling their parents bigots and refusing to come to family celebrations and holidays and things, but asking for money, which is insane. So a lot of them are, they have real struggles. A lot of them don't have jobs. Some of them have addiction problems. Some of them have alcohol problems or marijuana problems, and I don't mean casual use. I mean addiction, dependency, right? Dependency. A lot of them have relationship issues, constant relationship issues. Some of them have failing grades at school. Some of them have some other comorbidity, like an issue outside of the cult. Like some of them have, honestly, symptoms of personality disorders that should be addressed first. Some of them have problems with anorexia or, other things related to their health or their mental health. And so the woke cult it's like a way of avoiding dealing with any of that stuff in your personal life, any of the stuff that you might actually have control over. And that's why I say it functions like an addiction, because addictions are the same thing. I was an alcoholic. It'll be 6 years in October that my husband and I have been sober. And I was also in the woke cult for 20 years. And in some ways, these things went hand in hand. And when I wanted to avoid looking at, now that I look back on it, I can admit this, but at the time I couldn't see it, right? But I would often use alcohol as a way just to tap out and not deal or not think about things. Like, what do I want out of life? What's the meaning of life? Like the big picture questions, which are scary. And I had a good career and I was making very good money. But part of my career was pushing woke ideology. See how it was all entwined? I was pushing woke ideology in comedy, in the comedy world, in TV shows, films, things like that. And so focusing and obsessing on woke was my way of avoiding dealing with cleaning up my personal life. And this happens with a lot of these kids. And so just to get back to where we started on this, point number 2 is don't be a doormat. Don't be someone who just validates and enables. Don't be an enabler, because so much of woke, being that it's like an addiction, this is similar advice to a parent who might be dealing with a child who has an addiction problem, is you can't enable. It's better for them in the long run if you show them the long distance love, right? or, and I mean that in terms of like running a marathon. You show them that love over that spans such a length that you're thinking of them down the road, not just in this moment. You're thinking of them at every moment, like what's best for them. If a child has a sugar problem, has an obesity problem, and is asking for candy bars every time you go to the grocery store, and you're the kind of parent who buys them a candy bar every time you go to the grocery store or the gas station, you may think in that moment you're showing them love because you're giving them another candy bar, another candy bar, another candy bar, but you're not showing them love in the long run, like long distance wise at the end of their life, like their whole span of their life. That's not loving for them. If you enable your child's addiction by giving them money for booze or for drugs, and you know they have a problem, if you're always cleaning up the messes for them and allowing them to continue down this path, and you're not placing boundaries and saying no, that's not loving for them. They need boundaries from you. So don't be a doormat, and don't feel guilty about having principles. It's not your fault for having principles. It's not your fault for believing in truth, for being a Christian, for whatever it is that your child views, as a problem. It's not your fault for doing what you think is right in the voting booth and voting for a person that they think is evil. They're mistaken, So don't be a doormat. Okay, that being said, number 3 is to be loving. These two things there's a tension between these two things, right? Number 2 is don't be a doormat. Number 3 is to be loving. And there's a tension between these things. And sometimes it's a fine path to walk. Because in your interactions, you have to learn how to, and this is something you can pray for. If you know that you're not great at this, I pray for this all the time, is to figure out how to speak truth with love. Is to figure out how to be loving and to speak truth without malice or without animus, like to let go of the emotion of it, right? To let go of the anger of it. And sometimes this means, there's a lot of Bible verses about being slow to anger, about being slow to speak. And so sometimes you have to take a step away before you say something. Maybe you have a confrontation with your child, your teenager, your adult child. Maybe they send you a nasty email or text, or maybe there's some kind of really negative interaction, and your first instinct, of course, naturally, is defensive and angry back, and you want to fire something off that meets their level of anger and malice. It's not wise to do that. So if you have the restraint to be able to type something out and then not send it, then do that. You can get it out that way. Express yourself, but don't send it, right? Or maybe you have a spouse or a friend or someone else that you can express what you're thinking to, and tell them what this, my child did this today, it really burned me up, and here's what, I'd like to say, get it out, and then sit on it. Let some time pass. It's okay to let some time pass, because these phones are always in our pocket. We feel like, oh, a text comes in, I gotta say something right now. You don't have to. Walk away from it. Go for a walk. Do something physical. Take some time away so that when you do respond, you can be loving in your response, even while being firm, even while refusing to be a doormat. You can be loving, and you can pray, like, take that unnecessary malice out, right? So that's not in the response. Now, again, this whole episode, this is about people that you love and you care and you want to repair, you want to have reconciliation with. This is about children. This is about parents and children. So all the advice I'm giving, this doesn't apply to like anonymous, I shouldn't have to say this, but hopefully you understand. This doesn't apply to like anonymous, nasty people who say nasty things to you online. It's a different context. Sometimes I mock those people, whatever, like that's different. We're talking about people you love and who are part of your family, your children, who you want to reconcile with. And so you have to take some time to let that anger dissipate. And I know it's not easy to do that. I've been in that situation, not with a child, but with a family member where I just want to pop something off right away. And I've done over the course of my life both. And so I've seen the outcome of both. And it's always better if I can wait. If I can wait and just take a little bit of the malice out of there. And it doesn't mean being it doesn't mean that, oh, you have to police your speech or you have to start like walking on eggshells and figuring out how to no. Like, don't belabor it. It's just, this, if you're an adult, you've been through enough situations now where that if we as humans take a little time and don't just respond impulsively, we're going to say it in a better way. We're going to be more measured. We're not going to be as riled up. We know this. How many times have we sent something off and then later, like even an hour later, been like, oh, I regret that, or I regret the way I did that. I did something like that a couple months ago. Immediately regretted it. Was impulsive and immediately regretted it. So be loving. When the scripture talks about turning the other cheek, and I think what that means is, like, you don't repay, for example, you don't repay evil for evil. You don't repay malice for malice, because when you do that, your heart's going to become hardened. Like, let's say your child, maybe their heart is totally hardened towards you right now, and you know that. Their heart is hardened. They say the nastiest things. And the danger there is that you don't want Satan to use you don't want your heart to start to become hardened towards them. Calloused, sure, where you can like learn to let some of it roll off, sure, but you don't want it to become hardened where you have malice and contempt for them. And if that means that you limit the interactions with this child who's already estranged in some way and you're trying to reconcile with, that may seem counterintuitive. Why would I limit the interact? Because if you don't have control over your tongue and you're going to make it worse, then you might want to limit the amount of times that you interact with this person. Maybe they're so hateful and contemptful, have so much contempt for you right now that so contemptuous that you can't be in constant communication with them because they're provoking you. And so you have to be smart about that. You want to be your best self, not your worst self. So you want to put yourself in situations where you're more likely to be able to be your best self. Do not be bested by anything, including your own anger. Yes, exactly. Davina, you can have contempt for what they've done, but not the wrongdoer. Yes. There's a lot of great advice in the chat. Now I'm going to look through here and we're going to pull out some of these in a second. I just want to get through the list. So be loving in your interactions. I'm going to share just a quick anecdote here. I've mentioned this guy before. There was someone who sent me a message. This has been a couple years now, who was telling me, he had been estranged from his father, that he had just come out of the woke cult. He is watching Deprogrammed, and he's quite a bit younger than me. That he became brainwashed. He became pulled into this ideology in college, just like I was, just like a lot of young people are. And that he became really hateful and hardened towards his father. And that he started calling his father a white supremacist and saying he was a bigot, and, because he voted for Trump, that he's this and that, and trying to make every conversation about that, and just being very hateful and turning off his heart for his dad. And he said, now this is a young adult who eventually left woke and reconciled with his dad. What he said to me was, during those years that he was like that towards his dad, that his dad never bent in terms of what he believed. His dad never bent, but his dad was always cheerful, like friendly, loving with him, and always would try and make jokes and try and, be playful with him, and was always showing him love in that way, in the way he interacted. Even when he was showing his dad zero love and was being, hateful and spiteful, that his dad was always playful and loving, such that he knew that his dad was always there for him. And so years later, when he started to have this crisis of belief, and it really is a crisis. If somebody starts to leave the woke cult, it's like leaving any other cult. Everything is in chaos for them. The foundation of their house of belief has been pulled out from under them. They don't know who they are anymore because their identity's wrapped up in the cult, right? So it is psychologically like really hard for a person to leave, because everything they thought they believed was wrong. When they start to wake up, it's like, who am I? What have I been doing? What was this belief system I was in? It was wrong. Everything it told me was a lie. It was upside down, and they're floundering. And so when he went through that period, he remembered it wasn't even a question. He knew he could call his dad and talk to his dad about it, that his dad loved him, even though he was ashamed for how he had treated his dad during those years. Like, but his dad still loved him, and he knew that that door was still open from his dad's side. So I share that anecdote as an example of like being loving even while being firm. Number 4 is related to that. You let them know the door is always open from your side. Let them know the door is always open, and that you will, even if you have to say to them point blank at some point, maybe they're cutting off contact with you. You're in the middle of that right now. I was just talking with someone who's in the middle of something like that right now, potentially happening. You tell that child, like your child, I love you. I love you. I will always be here for you. I understand what you're doing. It's breaking my heart. I want to be reconciled with you. I will always be here. Make sure that they know that door is always open from your side. And again, going back to number 2, don't be a doormat. That doesn't mean getting rid of your boundaries. That doesn't mean, saying the door's open and I'm willing to do whatever you want, child. I'm willing to call you wrong pronouns, or I'm willing to do this and I'm willing to let you mutilate your body, or whatever the thing is, it doesn't mean you have to do that. I'm willing to vote for whoever you want me to vote for, child. No. It just means letting them know you're there. Okay, number 5. Don't debate the small stuff. Don't fall into the trap. What do I mean by this? Number 5 is don't fall into the trap. Invariably, this happens every time when a teenager or a young adult child gets pulled into the cult of woke. They start trying to make every conversation an argument about politics or Trump or the ideology. So it doesn't matter what you're talking to them about. You could be talking to them about like, hey, I planned a fun day for us. It would be great if, we go to the zoo together. And you could be, maybe they come to the zoo with you. You could be at the zoo and they start talking about white supremacy while you're there. Or, who doesn't get to enjoy the zoo? Illegal immigrant, undocumented immigrants. Whatever. They can be like, they try to make everything about it, everything an argument. Maybe you're working on your relationship and you're going to therapy with them and they try to make the therapy appointment about it. Maybe you give them a gift and they try and make the gift about it. Maybe you invite them to the holidays. They try to make the holiday about it. You invite them to the 4th of July barbecue and they're like, the 4th of July is oppressive and blah, 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 and colonialism and whatever. Thanksgiving, they want to talk about white supremacy and the oppression of the Native Americans. Like, they try and make everything about their cult ideology or Trump or politics or whatever it is that they're at odds with you on, that the cult has them at odds with you on. Do not fall into this trap. Maybe I should have made this number 1. Do not fall into this trap, because you are not going to win their hearts or win them back on facts. You will never win them back And if you think, oh, I can make the best argument and they're going to understand, no, it's not going to work. And now all they've done is they succeeded in getting you to argue about politics and to argue about, and all they've done is like double down into their ideology, become more embittered, and they've avoided, guess what they've done? They've avoided yet again having a fun day with you at the zoo, enjoying, ice cream together, whatever it is you planned for them. They've avoided working on your relationship if you're at a therapy appointment. Like they've completely avoided it by having another pointless fight about something. I used to do this to my dad all the time. All the time. Thankfully, I have a loving dad who's forgiven me for this. But when I was in the woke cult, he was always loving. He was like my aunt. He would be playful with me. He would send me jokes or things. And now sometimes he would try to wind me up. I don't know. Maybe you're that kind of dad who can do that. I'm not saying whether or not you should do that, but sometimes he would send me something, I think almost because he knew I would go off and he thought it was funny. But at least when he sent me stuff to wind me up, he was still being playful. He wasn't calling me names. He never called me any of the names that I called him. But, back during the when W was elected and things like that, he would send me stuff that would get me, like, it would wind me up and I would go off, and I called him all the things I called my aunt. You're in this white supremacist, patriarchal, capitalist, heterosexist cult, and you just don't understand. Like, I was so much smarter than him, right? I was always speaking the cult language to him. There were many times, it wasn't like every time, but a lot of the time, we could be doing something fun together, like hiking. If I was home visiting South Carolina, we could be hiking. We could be having the best day. And then something would come up, or what I would think about, oh, I've got to say this now. It's my duty. This is what the cult does to people. Like, I must be a witness. They're like little evangelists. They're like little Jehovah's Witnesses. They're very evangelical, the woke. They're always trying to sell you on their religion. So I would do that to him, and I would try to trap him in these fights. And my dad wouldn't. Sometimes he would spar with me, but he would always kind of be laughing and then let it go. Like, you can't fall into that of taking it seriously and seriously debating with him. You can't, because you're not going to win. You don't change people's minds. This is very sad, but you're not going to change somebody who's in the woke cult. You're not going to change their mind with facts. At least not at first. Facts come second. First, you have to change their heart. You have to change their heart first. Their heart has to be opened to you before their mind will be open to any new information. This is just the way it is. There have been studies about this. Jonathan Haidt's book is great to read, The Righteous Mind, where it talks about why good people are divided by politics and religion. Another book that comes to mind is blanking on the name of it now. I'll find it and I'll put it in the comments. But the other one I'm thinking of is this book that basically it talks about how our minds are changed through emotions usually. Like, it's an emotional change first. So don't fall into the trap. Don't debate the small stuff. You can let them know what you think about things. You can spar back a little bit, I guess, depending on your relationship. But in general, don't let them do that, especially if you have a planned intention for some kind of interaction. Let's say it's a child that you still interact with and you have planned a day of fun and you're going to the zoo. Don't let them ruin that day with this woke crap, and they'll try to bait you. Just smile or laugh or kind of sidestep it and then be like, look at the monkey over there. Like, just completely go back to what you're there for. Don't fall into the trap. Okay, number 6, plan something fun. Speaking of the zoo. Okay, so this is not going to apply to those of you whose kids have cut you off. But for those who are still in this place of it's very contentious, the child says they hate you, they don't want to see you. Maybe you have a visitation plan or something. They don't want to come and see you for part of the visitation. If you're in that period, maybe they're still living under your roof. They're a teenager and they're almost impossible to live with, and they seem like a different person. Okay. This kind of relates to number 5 about not debating the small stuff and don't falling into the trap. You want to try and have experiences with them that have nothing to do with debating the cult or politics. You have to try and plan those. So you have to try and plan something fun. And I would recommend something exhilarating and out of the box, because you get their adrenaline pumping. It's something new and different and fun. And it's something that's going to be really hard for them not to have fun at. Okay. And so here are some ideas. Now, this doesn't apply to every parent. Again, some of you have kids who've already cut you off. Some of you have, I'm just saying, the ones who've asked me who have like maybe a visitation weekend coming up with their kid and they're like, what can I do? Okay, so here's something. You can take them skydiving. My dad took me skydiving. My dad jumped out of planes in the Army. He was an Army Ranger. And so when we went skydiving, he jumped by himself. I went tandem with an instructor. Well, I had never done anything like this. And I'm telling you, you can't focus on anything else. It is just pure exhilaration and adrenaline and crazy fun. You could go whitewater rafting with them. Maybe you've never done that before. How fun, how exhilarating to do that with them. You can make a list of these things. Some of them can be pie in the sky, like maybe, or, just make a whole list, just brainstorm of fun things you could do. Have you been horseback riding before? Maybe you could take your kid horseback riding. Your adult child comes to visit. You're like, I have this fun thing planned where I want to try this. Depending on how open-minded they are. Now, some of them are going to say absolutely no, but depending on how open-minded they are, you could take them to the gun range for a shooting lesson. Maybe if they're a woman, you could find a woman shooting class. Now this actually, there are some woke people who are open-minded enough to do this. I used to, even when I was in the woke world, I was kind of an anomaly just in this one way. I was a NRA handgun instructor in Los Angeles, and I worked with a girls' gun club, and I actually would bring a lot of woke female friends to the range. So maybe that's something you could do with them that they've never done before. You could go hiking. You could plan a trip to putt-putt, but something fun and different. Maybe if your child likes to run or jog, maybe you could pick a 3K fun run that you walk or jog together. They have fun runs now for like every month. There's several of them, probably even wherever you live, you can find them. I said 3K. It's a 5K. Sorry. It's about 3 miles. So if you think you could do that, maybe you could train and work up to it, or you could just walk it. But there's 5K fun runs for every holiday, and there's all kinds of there's silly ones that you don't even have to be in shape. Okay. My dad, back when I was still drinking, my dad invited me to do a 5K fun run that was like a beer drinking fun. I didn't do it because I couldn't think of, I was like, that sounds horrible. Who wants to run and go from table to table drinking beer? But what my point being, there's so many different kinds. I did 2 zombie ones. I did 2 ones where the zombies like chase you, and I did the color run. There's chalk runs. You can take your kid, the turkey runs. You could do any of these. The point being, I don't want to belabor it. Just find something fun to do, especially if you're in the kind of situation where you only see your adult child once every few months, or maybe they're coming to visit or something. Make it fun. Go see fireworks together, something. Okay. Number 7. This is about you. This is the very hard thing to do. I saw Jen in the chat. Hey, Jen, it's good to see you. I know your situation, and girl, like, I pray for you. And thank you for being here. And you were absolutely right. It is very hard to let go. But number 7 is you have to let go of your anxiety. You have to try and work towards letting go of your anxiety. You have to work to lessen it, because the reality is, especially if you're estranged from your child, the more anxious you are about it, the more likely you are to be urgent in your communications with them, if you have any communications with them, to seem desperate. And any kind of, like, if your anxiety and urgency and desperation comes through, that's going to push them further away. They're going to be more likely to stay away, because every time they do talk to you, let's say you only hear from your kid once every couple years or something, because you're basically estranged. And when they talk to you, you're just like over the top, full of anxiety, like pushing right away. It doesn't happen immediately. It happens over time. Reconciliation happens, but it's not an immediate thing. Let me turn this. Sorry, this light just decided to turn itself on. So that's easier said than done. I know this. I've dealt with anxiety in a different situation, and it was one of the hardest things to get over. That fear of what's going to happen and what's going to happen in this relationship. And I want reconciliation now. I want reconciliation now. And this relates to, I mean, if you've been through AA, you have to, let go and let God. You have to figure out how to let go of it. So the only advice I know on how to give, the only advice I know how to give on letting go of anxiety is turning to scripture. Now, the people who didn't like number 1, where I said prayer, they're not going to like number 7, let go of anxiety, because mine has to do with prayer. I'm just telling you what works for me. Now, there's some things other than prayer, like you can do things for yourself that help lessen stress, anxiety. Like you can go get a massage. You probably need one. You might need a chiropractic adjustment or something. And just a word to the wise, we have Obamacare here in Texas. We're the freaking Obamacare. It doesn't cover much. In fact, it's not even covering. We're going outside of network for my surgery, because I would have had to wait a year and a half at least to go in network for the surgery. So we're like, just screw it. We don't have time to wait. They're just terrible. It's terrible. It's like socialized medicine. But one of the things it does cover, the one silver lining that I was pleasantly surprised to discover, is that it covers medical massage. And so it's very inexpensive for us to go. And so I'm just saying this because maybe you have a similar plan or something, and I would have never even thought to look for this, but my husband found it because he had some back pain and needed a massage. So go and see, maybe you can get it covered by your healthcare plan. In Texas, they have all these different places called Anthony Medical, and they just do like medical massage, and it's a chiropractor. So that's just a little tip, but maybe you could get a massage. Maybe you could do Pilates. Maybe you could start going to the gym. Maybe you could start walking, going to the spa, doing something for you that's going to help bring your anxiety level down and get you out of the house. Maybe it's gardening, things like that. Those are the practical things that you can do. But the prayer part, and I do think this is the most important part. So if you're a non-believer, you may not like that I say this. When I was going through a really rough year, I had so many friends help me when I finally opened up to them or talked to a friend. One of my friends told me that she writes when she was going through a really hard time. She was going through an awful divorce. She wrote note cards with scripture on them, scripture that would help to surround yourself with, like a suit of armor, and to keep in your mind, right? And she shared hers with me, screenshots of the ones that she had. And so I started there. I made my own note cards and I added to it. I went through, and anytime I saw a piece of scripture that I felt was very wise or a bit of advice that I needed to hear, I would write it down. I would have another note card, and I would kept these everywhere. This one is still in my office here years later. I would have it right here. There are others I would have on the bathroom mirror. Like I just kind of leave them around and have some in my purse. And so when you're feeling that anxiety, you can go and read a bit of scripture that's going to help you, that's going to protect you. And there's all different, I mean, the Bible is full of God loves you and he wants to help you and he's trying to show you the path. And so it's full of scripture that's going to help you. John 15:7, if you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you. 1 Peter 5:7, casting all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. Psalm 94:19, when the cares of my heart are many, your consolations cheer my soul. There's so many of these, and it helps to, I don't think it's the same to have it in your phone, like, let me go look it up. No, I think it does something to put it in the physical world here with you and to have these little cards, even if you just like keep them in your bathroom and you look at a different one each day or put a different one on your mirror each day. Just to surround yourself in God's word and God's advice about what you're going through and God's promises. That's going to help lessen, it helped me. It's going to help lessen your anxiety over time and help you to do that thing that's like the hardest thing for us to do, which is to let go and let God. It's not like you can snap your fingers and just do that, right? It's something you have to practice, like learn, grow towards, of letting go and saying, I trust you. I can't do anything else. I gotta let this go. We can't control everything. That's one of the first things you learn if you go to AA is like, unfortunately, you can't snap your fingers and force a reconciliation with your child. We have no control over it. And part of that walk with God is learning how to let go of or be at peace with and live every day with this horrible thing that you want reconciled, but it's not reconciled yet. But you have to learn how to find serenity, even when it's still lingering out there as a maybe one day, God, I'm going to trust you. Again, my aunt, I hope it's not this long for you, but my aunt prayed for me for 20 years, 2 decades. And there's going to be times where you're like, this is a totally lost cause, where you get angry at God and you're like, this isn't, you said if I called out to you, you would help me. I don't feel like you're helping me right today. There's going to be times where you feel that way. That's normal. You're going to go ebb and flow, and you just need to read God's promises to you. Your aunt likely still prays for you, Keri. I know she does, John. I know she does. And I pray for her. And I'm smiling because I'm just thinking about her. She's just a hilarious character. And I'm very grateful for her. Okay, that's my list. That's my 7. I wanted to get through those bullet points. And now I'm going to go through, I'll take a look at the super chats and I'll take a look at the questions, and I'll try and answer. If you think that, this is just the best advice I can give. Take what works for you, leave behind what doesn't. I've given the most basic advice that could be applicable in most situations. But again, there's going to be very specific contextual things that for each situation that make it a little bit different. Okay. Push-ups for $4.99. Hey, thanks, push-ups. Thanks for the super chat. Sometime this week, we need to talk about the woke right going full mask off in the last few days. Congratulations on your prescience and discernment. Oh my goodness. Well, I didn't even know they had done that, because I've been dealing with a lot of like real world stuff, I guess, offline stuff. I haven't been online as much. So, and mostly I was looking at the woke left stuff this week. I had a lot of leftist friends who were at some of the No King's Day protests. And so I was sort of looking at all that. So let me ask you this, push-ups. If there's a thread or something you think I need to see, tag me in it or send it to me on Twitter. But yeah, woke right is real. And if they're going mask off where more people can see it now, all the better. I did see one post this morning from an account that had like 300,000 followers or something, almost 500,000 followers. And he posted this really racist S tier where he ranked all the races. And he had like at the top, like S tier, like the best tier of races. And he had like, Swiss, Germans, Danes, blah, 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 Irish, Scots, English. And then he had A, which is the second tier. He had Italians and Greeks and Slavs. And he had all the way down. He had at the bottom, I think the next tier he had was like Japanese and Korean were on the next tier, like B or something, or C. And then under that he had, what was it? Chinese and Taiwanese. And then under that he had Black people and Arabs and Mexicans. And under that he had Jews. It was just like, it was the kind of thing that's so ridiculous that a couple years ago, you would have thought it was just people being funny and making a racist joke, not in seriousness, but making fun of the woke left somehow. Like, you wouldn't have taken it seriously. But now there's enough of these woke right people online saying crap like this, and enough sincere believers, a lot of them young men. It had like 29,000 likes the last time I saw it. People who are like, yeah, let's rank all the races and let's put white people at the top and Black people and Jews at the bottom. Like, it's so lame. It's so cringe. You're just as cringe as woke left. But that's a whole nother episode. You're right. We'll do another episode about it. Please send me anything you think I should see. Push-ups, and thank you. Robert Lowry. Hey, give it up for Rob, one of our mods. Thanks for being here, Robert. Member for 18 months says, throw your kid out of a plane, Keri. Oh, skydiving? How funny. Oh, man, that made me laugh hard. That's not what I meant, Robert. Somebody's going to clip it and be like, how to deal with your woke kid. No, that's not what I meant. My husband's here. I think he's at the gym. He says, who else went to the zoo? Hitler. Yeah, your woke child will probably say something like that. Something ridiculous. Thanks for being here. Okay. I'm going to go and try to find any questions that were left in here. Jennifer Atkins, much love to you, honey. She says, yes, my daughter and I used to spend so much time outside. I taught her the names of flora and fauna. She said, thanks for all the fun, etc., but you're a bigot now. Oh, okay. It's the most heartbreaking thing I can only imagine, because I haven't been through it with a child being, in that parent-child relationship. I can only imagine that's like part of your heart telling you goodbye. Like, I don't want you in my life, and saying cruel things to you. Because I imagine your child feels like your heart out there in the world, right? And as I mentioned before, like, it is unfortunately a long road for some people. Like, it's a really long road. And in the extreme cases of estrangement like that, where the child has completely cut you off, it's the most important thing I think. Again, this is just my advice coming from my beliefs and my experience. So of course I believe this. If you're one of my atheist friends in the chat today, I know you're not going to like it, but it's prayer. It's learning to be at peace even through the difficulties and the uncertainty of when or if ever this will be reconciled. So, let me see. I'm just going to look for, I'm scrolling up to the very beginning. I'm just going to look for questions, because I wasn't really looking at these as I was going through. Okay. Davina says, I'm no expert, but I would say look into addressing underlying problems before addressing woke, e.g. body image problems, bullying at school, questions about sexuality and relationships, autism, personality disorders, trauma, etc. Yes. This is especially true if you have a young child, where they're more like under your rules. Like they're in your house, they're young, they're not out living on their own. And so, I would especially say in that case, look into that. And usually you're going to find something like that, or addiction if they're older. Davina also says just getting outside and being active is good for kids instead of staring at screens and using social media. Yes, again, for younger kids, especially. Oh my goodness. The parents I know who limit screen time or don't even give their kids phones, which today is considered extremist. It's not extremist. I think those parents have it right. I look at their kids, I see their relationship with their kids, and I'm like, wow, they've figured it out. They've done the thing that seems extreme in today's culture, but they have well-adjusted kids, healthy kids with a good relationship with them who know how to behave in public and are learning responsibility and respect and just, happy kids. Let's see. Some people are talking about, okay, please, maybe you can do a video of talking to adult woke brothers. A lot of this is similar. It's not entirely the same, but a lot of it will be similar. But thank you. I'll put that on the list because I want to start doing a lot of these and I want to get more specific. Cynthia, God is sneaky. He listens to our prayers and acts in his own time. That's true. That's true. Sometimes we think that we're getting a no when I pray. I'm like, I guess this is a no. And then come to find out it was a yes. It was like a yes, but wait until it's the right time. And so that's always funny. John Burcham, hey, my UK atheist friend says prayer closets. Wow, that's freaky and weird. I guess it would be if you've never seen one, but it's a little bit like we're currently working on renovating our garden, our backyard. We're gonna have a prayer corner of the garden. Just a little place where a space that you dedicate to that. Just like you have a space that you dedicate to sleeping and a space you dedicate to eating. And maybe you have your favorite reading nook in your house where that's where you read. Maybe you have your music room and that's for music. And it's just a little room for prayer. Um Squat P says, ask him for wisdom, both yourself and the child. Okay. Here's a question, Jennifer. What was some of your process, Keri, coming out of it? Okay, this must have been when I was saying how hard it is for a person when they wake up. So when I woke up, like I said, almost everyone I've talked to is very chaotic for them. It's a hard thing to leave a cult. All the odds are stacked against you to even leave because you're in this high degree of control group, and the longer you've been in it, the more control they have over all of your thoughts and acceptable thoughts and speech. And you've accepted all these different things as truth, which are not true. And so you feel like a bad person because you're starting to question it. So in the woke cult, for example, there are so many different beliefs that I had just imbibed and just assimilated and believed these things as truth, like white privilege, like the fact that being a woman means I'm oppressed, things like this. No. And so as you start to shed those things, well, first of all, there are so many psychological controls in the belief system where you start to, like I said, you wonder if something's wrong with you because you're questioning the cult, because you don't even realize it's a cult. And so you start to be like, oh my gosh, why am I questioning this? Whatever causes the cracks in your belief system, in my experience, the cracks got bigger and bigger and there were more and more cracks. And I started thinking about it more. And I started secretly listening to outside voices like Jordan Peterson and others who were helping me to understand it better. But I was having all these doubts about what's going on. For me, the process was about 6 months between when I first wrote a letter to Jordan Peterson about all the stuff I was questioning and seeing in my cult of belief, and he read it on his channel, which scared me. And I emailed him and said, I had a lot of fear about him reading it, even though he changed my name and some identifying factors. I was like, what if somebody finds out that I wrote that in my, because I was still in the cult. I was so afraid. And he basically said, you have to get over your fear. And it took me about 6 months to get out. 6 months later is when I wrote my essay and came out as like leaving the woke cult. It took me half a year after that even to come out of it. So it was a long process. And then after coming out of it, that's a long process of shedding figuring out which things were cult beliefs and what do you actually believe. And it's psychologically crushing because, again, it's like if you think of your belief system and the way that you view the world, like the way that you view engaging and being in the world, how to be in the world and what is the world about and everything, all of that came crashing down, raised to the very foundation, right? And so you have to start building that brick by brick. And I was despondent. I was also going through a divorce. It's not a coincidence that all this stuff happened at the same time. In fact, I think part of what happened is that all of the personal issues, including the breakdown of my marriage and my alcoholism and all of that, my drug use, I was smoking pot all the time. I think all of that in some ways contributed to me waking up. It was also the stuff I saw, as I've mentioned, when I tell the story of leaving woke, there were some very important things that I saw that struck me emotionally. And those things were things that challenged my emotional view. They hit me emotionally. Like I said, there's a change of heart first. And for me, it was seeing video after video after video of leftists, people who are supposedly on my side, attacking Trump supporters at rallies. This is in 2016, and being violent to them and throwing bricks at them and chasing them and bloodying them and just being hateful to them and demonic. Although I wouldn't have called them demonic at the time. I would have thought that was a silly word, but they were just being horrible. And it left me in tears. And that was one of the biggest cracks at the beginning, because it kind of shook the foundations of what I thought. Because here you think your side is good and you're the good people, and then you see them doing this evil and you're like, wait, what? I was sobbing watching it. I wanted to step in on behalf of the Trump voters and protect them from my side. That's the way it made me feel. This wasn't a thing about facts. This was like a feeling, right? And something similar happened around the same time when that Black Lives Matter rally in Dallas, Texas happened, where the sniper killed a bunch of police officers, just shot people down, cold blood. And in my woke cult, people were like celebrating it. And that really shook me. It's like when you can see the evil. Sometimes it's easier to see evil before you see good. I could see the evil. Again, I didn't believe in God. I wasn't a believer or anything, but I felt like this is evil. And the road of leaving it was very personal in some ways. A lot of it was happening just privately. I wasn't, like I said, I reached out to people. Like I wrote that letter to Peterson that he read, and that's when we started emailing briefly. And he was very helpful. Watching his videos was very helpful. But I wasn't reaching out to a lot of people in my personal life because they were all in the cult. They were all in the cult. And the few times I did try talking about it a little bit, the things I was thinking online, and I would get slapped down just like you would expect in the cult by my friends who were in it. Like, for example, when Trump won, I was really trying to figure out why he won. And I was thinking it's because of this stuff, the social justice stuff, the woke stuff. It's wrong. And it's turning people off. And so I was still trying to think about this. I was still on the left. I hadn't fully left. Again, it's a slow process. But I had started to realize the woke stuff was wrong. And so I was posting stuff like, I still believe Trump was a demagogue. It didn't happen overnight where you shed all these beliefs, right? I still believe Trump was, he's evil. And so I was sharing stuff like, hey, we have to make sure Trump doesn't win again 4 years from now. So in order to do that, we have to figure out why he won. And I think it's some of this stuff. The social justice stuff is wrong. The politically correct stuff is wrong. Here's some videos I've been watching so we can maybe learn from what people are saying. And I was sharing stuff, and my fellow cult members were like, how dare you? He won because of racism and sexism, and that's it. Like, these people are fascists. That's it. I'm like, but they're not. They're not. I was like, look at the number. I was looking at the numbers. I was like, oh my gosh, a lot of people who voted for Obama voted for Trump. How did that happen? And they were like, no, we're not going to look at that. So that I was like, okay, that actually made me, that's like another crack in the belief system, because I started to realize it's cult-like. At some point, I was so despondent and so depressed and in such a dark place that I considered the possibility of God. I became obsessed with the question, are we bigger? Or is there something bigger out there other than just are we just physical bodies with like computer brains? Is that it? We just evolved to be like, we're just like any other creature, but we evolved with these computer brains. And like, what is consciousness? I started reading all these scientific papers about string theory and consciousness. I was really trying to find a scientific way of explaining consciousness and having a conscience. I just became like kind of consumed with it. And so I decided to go to a church, which I never would have thought I would have done. And the first church I went to was called Agape International. It's huge. It's in Los Angeles. Michael Bernard Beckwith is the pastor there. I don't know if he's still the pastor, but he's like good friends with Oprah. And it's sort of one of these new age spiritual center places that brings in some elements of Christianity, yes, but all these other different faiths as well, and mindfulness, new age kind of stuff. And that was the only place I would have gone at that time. And it turns out like God was leading me through, like, I wouldn't have gone through any other door at that time. That was the one. And then later I went through another door and another, until I found my wonderful Christian church, Church on the Square in Georgetown, Texas. But there were a lot of doors that I went through before that. And it's funny, since you asked, Jen, like, how did I come out of it? I did start sharing some things with my aunt, because I started to come out of that dark place a little bit now that I was going to church. Like, on that very first time I went, I felt the presence of God. I had a moment where I just broke down in tears with this overwhelming joy and forgiveness. It's hard to explain. If you're a believer, what I'm talking about. I had a moment like that. And I've talked about it before. But I started to have a little bit of joy. And I thought, when I talked to my aunt, who'd been praying for me all those years, it's like, I'm going to tell her I'm going. I was like, okay, I'm going to this church. And she was like, you are, floored. Again, this woman's praying for me for 2 decades. And I told her, and she's like, what church is it? And I told her, and she was like, well, that doesn't sound like a God. She was judgmental. My aunt is very judgmental, which is fine. But that's, I'm laughing because that's who she is. She immediately was like scolding. That's not a God-fearing church. You need to find a Christian church. And not knowing that, like, that's really the only door. So could you take some advice from this? Maybe if your adult child starts, maybe if they're a very anti-Christian and very, prejudiced against the belief in God, and they start going, you can be a little, you can still speak truth, but you can be a little more encouraging that they're even going through a door at the beginning. But I don't know. Hopefully that answered your question. What was your process coming out of it? Okay, that was some of it. Let's see. Rosa, I think many people had a similar awakening in the 2020 Summer of Love. They did. Yes, Rosa, a lot of people woke up then. And over the COVID years, either that or they became even more entrenched in their beliefs, unfortunately. Yes. Isn't that weird how this happens, Rosa? Like when there's a crisis or something traumatic or some kind of crisis, I think of it now like an opportunity. Every time it happens, it's like God's offering you an opportunity, and you can either take that opportunity and use it to change everything, to change your life, to get out of whatever that thing is, or you can use that crisis to double down. That crisis can cause you to double down. It always goes. It's like nobody just stays the same. They either get worse or they start to get better. That's the way I view it now. Another Gen 42 says, Keri, thank you. You give me hope. My daughter started talking to me after over 2 years when I got cancer, but stopped when I couldn't call her by her new name. Maybe someday. Honey, first of all, I'm going to pray for you, and God loves you, and God loves your daughter. I don't even know you, but I feel that agape love for you, and I'm so sorry that you're dealing with that. I cannot imagine how painful it is. And you are right, maybe someday. Maybe someday. And all we have control over are our own behaviors, thoughts, emotions, our words, the words we choose. That's it. We can't control what they do. And so if we can choose to say, I want to be strong in truth, and I want to also be loving, and God, I want you to help me do that when and if I get to have interaction with my child. Honey, if you pray, by the way, pray for another Gen 42. If you guys want to put prayer requests in here, feel free. Let's see. I think somebody's being sarcastic here. This is pretty funny. Comedy helps, by the way. Nick K says white women have it the hardest in the US. That's a fact. It's so funny. Okay, here we go. Societal decay. My adult gay son has cut off the entire family, including all 3 of his younger brothers. Being gay, he was easily indoctrinated into thinking that we all hate gay people because of politics. How to mend? Thank you for the question. I hope you're still here. It's taken me a while to scroll through and find the questions. So first of all, I am sorry that you're going through this. If your child is not a believer, then honestly, I wouldn't come at this through the Christianity angle. You might end up doing more harm than good and push him further away from Christ. So if it were me, and I've been in similar situations, not with a son, but what I would do is, I have a gay friend. Let me put it this way. I have a gay friend who's super in the woke world. And like you said, if you were in any kind of quote unquote marginal, what the woke call marginalized or oppressed identity group, if your kid is in any one of those groups, the ones that the woke call oppressed, women, gay people, let's say they've decided they're trans, right? If they're a person of color, right? Then they are more susceptible to this cult, because this cult preys on them. It uses those identity groups as part of the cover for this identity Marxism. It's really Marxism underneath it. They throw out their own identity rules all the time, but they use the identity rules. They use identity as a cloak. So the people that it's targeting are the ones that they call the oppressed groups, like gay people, for example. So I have a friend who's still in the woke world. I knew him from when I was in the entertainment world in Los Angeles. He's a brilliant director. And he has still not unfriended me on Facebook, but periodically, he will go through, and he's one of the ones, there's several people who do this, my friends, who will go through and do like passive aggressive laughing reacts on all my posts, which is fine, whatever. But then periodically, if that doesn't trigger anything, which it doesn't, then he will start direct messaging me, and sometimes it's very hateful stuff. Okay. But here's the thing. I think a part of him is still open. That's why he hasn't unfriended me yet. I think a part of him is still curious and wants to understand. And so he's one of the people that I pray about. Give me patience so I don't respond with anger. Give me patience because he can say some nasty things that make me angry. And so I've gone back and forth with him sometimes where I try to stay positive and not take his, and I will speak the truth. I will point out his insults. I will say, hey, that was a really mean thing you just said. I'm not going to respond in kind, or I'm going to try not to. I will point it out. I see the truth. I see what you're doing, but I'm going to try and not speak to you that way. And then I will just answer the question or what have you. And so what I've done in the case of this guy, since he's gay and he's in the woke cult, he believes, like your son probably does, that if Christians hate gay people, all Republicans hate gay people, that if you're not in the woke world, you hate gay people, that everyone hates gay people, that the world is homophobic and everyone hates gays, right? And he believes all that stuff. And so he's not a believer. So I don't even bother coming at it from the Christian perspective with him because he doesn't share that belief system. So it's not going to have any impact. Instead, I try and challenge his false beliefs. The woke cult is lying to my friend and telling him that all gay people have to think alike and they all have to speak woke. Just like it says all black people have to speak woke and all women have to speak woke and all trans people have to speak woke. No. So I sent him interviews I have done with gay friends or interviews other people have done with gay friends who have left the woke world or were never in the woke world to try and challenge his stereotypes. And I don't overwhelm him. Well, one time I think I did overwhelm him. But if it's your son, don't overwhelm him. Pick the best episode you can find or the best book or the best whatever it is that's going to challenge a stereotype and you share it with him. Now, it might need to have a sense of humor about it. My friend Mike Harlow is on my program on Deprogram quite a bit. One of my early interviews with him, if you want to share that one, might be best. But even like a recent one where we talk, you have to watch the whole thing first and make sure it's the right thing to send, right? Maybe your child, if it weren't a son, if it were a woman, you might want to send the one that I've done with, oh gosh, I'm blanking on her name right now. I'm having a total brain moment. Eva Kurilova. That was a great episode, I think, where she talks about gender ideology and also, being a lesbian who's against trans and kids. But there's a ton of them. And if you need suggestions, please, in the comments, say, I need suggestions for videos to send my son, and I will give them to you. Now, if you do choose to send any of these to your son, you might want to come back and delete that comment so your son doesn't see, but send them, and maybe don't send them one from my channel now that I think about it, because they might see this video. So find a video that Mike Harlow's done on his own or on another program or on trigonometry on a show like that and send him one of those. But do something to challenge that stereotype. I think that is the most important part, because that's part of the reason why my friend is the gay friend I mentioned still has not unfriended me, I think, is because his mind is blown. Now, I don't even know if he's watched the stuff I've sent him. In fact, one of the times he said, I'm not going to watch. He said, I'm not going to watch. Like, they don't want to watch anything because he knows it would challenge his views. He knows that it would challenge his views, and not any specific view about policy or anything, but his view that all gay people think alike. He doesn't want that challenged. People got so mad. Oh my God, they got so mad. My friend Mikey was here a couple of weeks ago, and we just had a silly day. I wanted to show him Austin, Congress Avenue. And we had a silly day wearing MAGA hats in Austin because it's so woke there. We thought how funny we'll get some fun photos, just have a little bit of jokes, right? And I shared those photos and people got so mad. And a couple of the photos got shared to these woke leftist groups. So I had all these new people, these woke leftists who were coming into my comments, and they were comment bombing the pictures, but here's the thing they were most mad about. They were really mad that Mikey's gay and that he's wearing a Trump hat. They were so mad. And And if you respond to stuff like that with like, well, you don't, as if they're the weird ones, like they're the abnormal, and they are, but they're so used to it. They always act like everyone agrees with them and what they think is normal. You have to do the opposite. So when I encounter a stranger online, for example, and they're like, how could he be gay and vote for that monster Trump? And I was like, I'll just say, do you really not know any gay conservatives? Well, you don't know any gay Republicans at all? None? Do you not know any gay or any trans Republic? Like, really? Because they are the weirdos that they don't know. They don't realize they're in a cult, you see? They don't realize that everyone they know agrees with them and is in their cult of belief. So you can say it in that way that kind of points out how weird it is. Like, wow, like you don't know any gay conservatives. If you want, like I can introduce you to some people or public people or, private friends who would be willing to talk with you. Maybe you could do that with your son. Just try and shatter. I would say this is my advice anyway. Try and shatter that false belief first. This is a pretty darkly funny joke. The entire Republican leadership is gay. This is really funny because actually when Mike was here, we were joking. There are so many closeted conservative influencers who pretend to be straight and married and Christian, who are married to women and Christian, and it's kind of gross. Like I would much prefer you just be honest. Okay. How dare he not be a gay NPC? I know, and it is amazing. Dion is like, he's not some unicorn. There's tons of gay concern. It's 2025. Do you really not know any? Like, not just in your personal life. Like, you should know people who disagree with you, but also there's enough. Even if you don't, let's say you live in a small town, you don't know that many people in real life. So, okay, maybe if you live in a town of 1,000, there's not a gay conservative. I don't know, but there's so many public people now. Like, really? Okay, let's see. I'd love to okay, before I read this one, let me just say, for the previous question, I hope I answered that in full. If I didn't, leave a comment if you have follow-up questions. Like, that's not the only advice I would give. I would just say start there. If the son is someone that you still talk to and you have interactions with, and maybe that's not the right path. Maybe your relationship, the situation better than me. Maybe you're like, no, I can't send him a gay conservative video to watch because he'll get really angry. So let me know that if there's like follow-up questions you have, you can leave them below. Okay, Rock Lexicon, Keri, I would love to get your suggested tips for dealing with longtime friends who go woke and or shift left wing, perhaps similar yet different than dealing with children. Okay, this is so hard because every situation is different, like it is with children, with adult children. I might do a whole episode about this, so I think I will. So this will be abbreviated, but every situation is different. They're not all going to have the same outcome. I've had long-term friends who went super woke and unfriended me. I've had ones who went super woke and publicly attacked me on their Facebooks or Twitter or whatever and called me names and said I became a Nazi and all this stuff, right? Who tried to turn other of our longtime friends against me. I've had all of that. I've had both situations, like the unfriending, the mobbing, all of it. I've also had some longtime friends who were woke. We were in the woke world together, and they're still in it, but they have not unfriended me. Now, some of them privately talk to me on DM. When they visit Austin, we get together for lunch. We're still friends. And with those are rare. And what I would say in those instances is I have let them know through my actions that I love them. And part of what I love about them is that They they are they are, in my estimation, a real friend. They haven't unfriended me. They haven't piled on me. They haven't called me names, even though they post a bunch of stuff that I think is thoroughly vile. And I post a bunch of stuff that they think is vile. They think Trump is the worst, but I know their heart, and I've let them know, like, as long as you're still open to being my friend and talking with me, like, I'm still open to being your friend. And we knew each other before I left this ideology. I think this ideology is bad. I think it's evil, but I don't think you're evil. And we have a long history together. So why would we end our friendship over this? So silly. We don't even have to talk about ideology when you're in town. Most of the time we don't. And if you can establish that with your friend, like, that's the best. That kind of, like, we may never understand each other, but we're still friends. I will always be there for you. That kind of friendship. That's the best. There's very few of those kind of friends, by the way. Aristotle writes about the 4 different kinds of friendships. I think it's 4, but this kind of friendship, is very rare. A lot of people will be in your life just for a season because they will disown you if they're woke. Most woke people will. It's cult-like. I mean, it is a cult after all. I don't know. I'll do a whole episode on this, actually. My husband's been through this also. So this is very common in today's age. Okay. What's the live schedule, Keri? Hey, CB. Mondays and Fridays at 2 p.m. Central. Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. And then on Wednesdays, usually every other Wednesday, we do a Christian panel Wednesday night, or we do a pop culture. If you like Mersh, I saw you, that might be more your speed. Actually, we've had Royce on from that show you're talking about. We've had Royce on a couple times on pop culture. I will say this Wednesday, there's not going to be a Christian panel. Since we're at the end of the video, I'll just tell you, there's not going to be a panel this Wednesday. Again, I have to delay it again because I'm having surgery Wednesday, and I'm going to be just out of commission all day. And it is in, what do they call it? Outpatient. So I should be home. Everything should be fine, but I'll be probably hopped up on a lot of drugs and saying crazy stuff. So I will not be doing a video on Wednesday. Yeah, if you pray, say a prayer for me. Now, I've been told that I'll tell you more about the surgery later. I don't want to go into it now, but I've been told it's not that big of a deal. But I've never been cut into. I'm fortunate in that way, I guess. And now's my time. So I've never been put under like that, where they know. Just something about that scares me, that they're putting you under, like they're going to put you to make you go to sleep. And then what if you feel things? I know you're not supposed to feel things, but it really scares me. So say a prayer for me. That's on Wednesday. And that's it. Please stream it. We want a stoned stream. No, let me tell you, those of you who are fans of pop culture, one of my best friends is Mystery Chris. Every other Wednesday at 8 o'clock was our usual schedule. We haven't been keeping to that lately, but he got surgery a couple years ago, and I was his driver that had to pick him up because he was on all the, when he came to, and he was saying crazy, like they all say crazy stuff, right? The woman who came out of surgery right before him was talking to her husband. She thought she got breast implants. She didn't. She was just saying crazy stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's he going to say? And so if you watch pop culture, Mystery Chris has a dark and funny sense of humor. And so he comes out, the nurse is wheeling him in the wheelchair, and he was saying all kinds of stuff about Jews. But this was before, he's not woke, right? Wasn't saying it in seriousness. This is back when he was like he was trying to joke. This is back when it used to be the, edgy jokes. And I knew he was trying to make jokes, but he was also stoned. So I think all the nurses just believed him. He was like, hey, Keri. He's like, psst, Keri. And she's pushing his wheelchair. He's like, Keri, there's a lot of Jews in here. He was just trying to be imagine this black man in a wheelchair telling this white lady, and he was trying to think of the silliest, most offensive thing he could say. And it's the kind of joke that probably only seemed well advised because he was on all that medication. I was like, let's get you to the truck. We'll get you home. So silly. Mystery Chris is great. He's ridiculous. So yeah. So get up the likes, people, says CV. Thank you for the super chat. Hey, and welcome. I think you're new here. Good to see you. Okay. I'm going to wrap it up here. I maybe missed some questions. I tried to find all of them, but it's hard they're not highlighted. So just going through and looking for question marks is a little difficult. So feel free to put questions below in the comments. I'm going to try and do some shorter videos or maybe some clips from this one to help people out. And I thank you guys for being here. And I'll post updates about our upcoming schedule on the channel. On the community page, I'm going to let you know what's coming up. I do have a new gig, which is exciting. So if there's any changes, I'll let you know. Thanks for being here today. If you like the video, hit like. If you have questions, if you have comments, if you have things you want to add, feel free to do so below. And I will see you guys later. I hope you have a great week. Okay. Thank you so much. Take care.